Hello, my name is Vanessa Ricci-Thode, and my favorite thing is monarch butterflies and giant sequoias.
Welcome to the Finding Favorites podcast, where we explore your favorite things without using an algorithm. Here's your host, Leah Jones.
Hello and welcome back to Finding Favorites. I'm your host, Leah Jones. It is Sunday, July 9th. I'm a week late, but I don't think I'm going to apologize. Last weekend was a 4-day weekend, 5-day weekend, endless summer vibes, and I can't be trusted to put out a Sunday episode on a holiday weekend. I think that's what we've learned this year, and I'm okay with that. July for me is super busy in a fun way. Kind of everything kicked off last night. I co-hosted a friend's 50th birthday party. I want everybody in Chicago to know about the dinner venue we went to. It's called Good Company. It's at 4947 North Clark with Chef Stephanie Johnston. She is a private chef who worked out of a commercial kitchen, a shared commercial kitchen during peak COVID. And when that kitchen shut down, she leased the former Bang Bang Pie location on Damon. And now she does ticketed supper club events, cookbook clubs, Vanderpump Rules with pizza, and she also does private events. And so we squeezed 30 people into the venue for a 5-course dinner that was amazing. Every dish had so much depth of flavor. It was just remarkable. Let me tell you a few of the delicious things we had last night. So this is Good Company on Damon in Ravenswood. Our welcome bite was a sweet pea and ricotta toast with basil, hot honey, radishes, and microgreens. Then we had this green salad that had roasted beets, fennel, radish, avocado, basil, mint, and sunflower seeds with this really, I think it was a vinaigrette. The dressing was a vinaigrette. It was beautiful. It was like everything good about summer in a bowl. And then a roasted red pepper pasta with fresh herbs, pickled chilies, feta, and toasted breadcrumbs. Then we had a black pepper and basil roasted chicken served with shawarma spiced potatoes and the creamed corn. So good. Oh my gosh, so good. And then for dessert, we had a peach and polenta crisp with vanilla ice cream. So people who have listened for a long time know that since I went through chemo, my taste barometer is a little bit off. So I was like, I thought the welcome bite, the pasta, maybe, and the potatoes, I was like, oh, they're spicy. And people were like, those are spices, Leah, not spicy. But the hot honey and the welcome bite, it was just a beautiful, beautiful dish. So if you are looking for somewhere to host a dinner where you don't have to clean up, you don't have to clean your house, cook, or do the dishes at the end of the night, Good Company on Damon was an amazing option. She also does like take-home meals once a week, so you can buy, it's an alternative to meal delivery services, and it's an alternative to Grubhub. And somebody had sent me one of her dishes when I was going through chemotherapy, and I found it to be the most well-proportioned meal, one of the most well-proportioned meals I had received during my treatment. So I just really wanted to shout out Good Company in Ravenswood in Chicago. Stephanie was amazing to work with. We had so much fun. And I am still, as you can tell from the speed that I am talking, very excited about how last night went. I think the best part about planning events is debriefing with friends the next day or over the next week about like, well, what about this? What about this? So it was a really fun, very fun night. Happy birthday, Ronnie. In other news, next weekend I'm officiating a wedding, so I will try to get my next interview locked and loaded to post while I am while I'm struggling to get up the morning after the wedding. Then at the end of the month, July 20th through 22nd, is the inaugural Chicago Jewish Book Festival. I'm working on it with Amy Guth. Every few years we collaborate on something, and this is through her role at 5959 and my role as the president of Emmanuel Congregation. So we have a Thursday night panel with the Artist House talking about revelation. What do writers reveal in their writing? So that's really exciting. Friday night, we have a librarian coming down from the Milwaukee Public Libraries to give a Devar Torah, to give a talk during Shabbat services about the people of the book and banned books. And then Saturday all day, we really think the spirit of Shabbat is talking about books. So we are doing a day of programming, and then after Shabbat, we're going to end with a closing reception with Jonathan Eig. He's a New York Times bestselling author. Stacey Agdern, the romance writer, we talked about her Joyfully Jewish books and hockey and romance. She is coming to Chicago for the festival. Again, this is the inaugural festival. I'll link to it in the show notes. I really hope that folks can come and meet Stacey in person. I'm going to do a live record of Finding Favorites with children's author Bindi Bitterman. She wrote a book all in limericks. So really excited for that. And finally, I said that I would read more reviews. I have realized only good podcasts. Apple Podcasts, formerly iTunes, is like, you can listen to podcasts almost everywhere, but like the rating and reviews is still almost entirely on Apple and then Good Pods. So a couple weeks ago, I read a review. At the time I said it was from ChatGPT. It was actually from Jesse Dukes from Upper Middle Brow. So I want to acknowledge the last time I read a review, it was from Jesse Dukes from Upper Middle Brow, not from ChatGPT. So thank you, Jesse, for that. Go and listen to their summer reading recommendations. They did 3 episodes. I have a little clip on the call-in episode where I talk about Abraham Josie Reisman's book, The Ringmaster, and some classic Jasper Fforde. And so I've already listened to one of the books recommended and just keep listening. So this review is a year old from RDSWN, Roadswan, a refreshing and fun podcast. This is such a great way to learn about interesting people and topics. Leah is an excellent host, so thoughtful with the best questions. A must listen. 5 stars. So thank you so much. So please go on Apple, leave a review, leave a 5-star rating, and I will make a better habits of reading these out loud. So all that said, wear your mask, wash your hands, get your booster, and keep enjoying your favorite things. Hello and welcome to Finding Favorites. I'm your host, Leah Jones, and this is the podcast where we learn about people's favorite things and get recommendations without using an algorithm. Today, I am with author Vanessa Ricci-Thode. Vanessa's new book, True Flame, the second book in the Fireborn series, is out now, and I'm so excited that they're here with me today. Vanessa, how are you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. It appears to be a sunny day outside. I'll find out later.
It's very sunny here. It's been sunny here for weeks. It doesn't rain here anymore. It's great. No, my garden is so mad. I live near Toronto in Waterloo.
Okay.
Yeah. It hasn't rained here in about 2 weeks, and before that we got like one afternoon of a little bit of rain, and then it was another 2 weeks before that. So it's very dry. My garden is crispy and grumpy, and our rain barrels are empty, and I'm always out there just like, I've got it on life support because this isn't an area that usually gets this droughty, but it's droughty. Yeah.
People were talking about it. I was at a pre-wedding wine tasting last night for some friends, which was very fun. It was just all the potential wines for the wedding and a lot of very opinionated friends and family trying the wines.
That's fun.
All fancier wines than I would ever buy on a normal day. So, but big conversation about the drought in the Midwest and the current height of the corn not being high at all, and how dry the ditches are downstate. We had some soybean traders in the house. So it got very technical.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That's a Chicago finance conversation for sure.
Okay. All
Yeah.
right.
Yeah. Oh, wow. So outside of Toronto?
Yes. About an hour outside of Toronto.
Okay. Is that where you're from?
No, I'm from Northern Ontario, the bit that's like north of Duluth.
Okay. All right.
Yeah.
Now, are you part of one of the things I learned about my friends in Toronto, but also my friends in Minnesota, so Duluth is applicable, is cottage season. Are you someone, does your family or your friends, do you guys go to a cottage on the weekends? Like on the first 3-day weekend, did you go and open a cottage somewhere?
So, where I grew up, way, way north of Minnesota, we called them camps. They were
Okay.
cabins. People went to camp. Or actual camping with tents. I didn't do a whole lot of that. My little tiny town was sort of cottage country. It was where all the people came from the city and had little cottages along the lake. So I grew up there. And then now I'm closer to Toronto, and yes, cottage culture is huge here. I'm not part of it. In order to get to a really nice lake and decent, quiet, and affordable, you have to drive quite a bit. And so we do go once a year to a place on the tip of the Bruce Peninsula called Tobermory. It's beautiful. The whole peninsula is a dark sky preserve, so the stargazing is just incredible.
Wow.
Yeah. So we do that once a year. But otherwise, no, my neighbors go every weekend. They have a cottage, I think near Lake Erie.
Okay.
Yeah. Where I'm situated, it's a very easy drive to Lake Huron, Lake Erie, and Lake Ontario.
Wow.
Yeah.
So you have options.
Lots of options.
Lots of options. I'm in Chicago, so right on Lake Michigan.
Uh-huh.
And I do have friends that have lake houses that go to Michigan or Indiana or Wisconsin. I am not that person, but I was talking about it recently with someone about how I think I'd been in Minnesota the week of Mother's Day, and all anybody was talking about was that was the weekend to go open the camp or the cottage or whatever.
Wow. So. It's Victoria Day weekend here, which is the weekend before Memorial Day, is the big go to camp, go to the cottage, get everything opened up, and because it's usually colder. That's also when our planting season officially starts, because that's usually the safe bet for being past the first frost. I do know some people who will, especially in southern Ontario where I am now, it's warmer than the rest of the country usually. So people will go on Mother's Day or Easter if it's been really nice. They'll go, and Easter's late in the year. They'll go on Easter and open things up. Depends on the weather. The weather is so bonkers lately. So
yeah, absolutely. So Vanessa, I'm curious. Your new book, True Flame, is out.
It is.
From the Fireborn series. Tell me about it.
The first book actually came out 10 years ago, and I released this on the 10th anniversary of the first book.
Wow.
The first book was published through a little hybrid publisher out of Toronto, and they did great work with it. And then I was, a small press wasn't quite for me. And so I was trying to get an agent and get a big publishing deal. And that it took me 10 years to realize that was not the right path for me anymore. So now I have self-published, and I got the rights back to the first book from the publisher and re-released it in March. And then True Flame came out on 2 days after the exact 10th anniversary of the first one. So
awesome.
Yeah, because I spent that 10 years still writing books, just not publishing any. So I have this huge backlog of books. I'm like, I should put them out.
Yeah. Are the books that you've written in those 10 years part of the Fireborn series?
Some of them are, yes. I'm releasing 2 more books this year because
that's awesome.
Poor life choices or something. Or great life choices, we'll find out.
Yeah.
So
I don't think it's I don't think it's poor life choices to give your fans what they want, which is more story quickly.
Yes.
Right?
It might be a poor life choice for me. I am starting to run into why did I do this to myself? Because I just finished a round of edits on book 4 and am now immediately starting edits on book 3. Because I developmental edits for one, and now I'm headed for copy edits for the other. And so it's the scheduling, and I'm just like, when do I write? When do I write the next book?
Fair.
So,
Fair.
Yeah. Hopefully, once I get this next one off to the copy editor, it'll calm down a little, and I can write some books.
Mm-hmm. So tell me about the cover.
Mm-hmm.
There's this beautiful person with long hair and a very cool dress or robe. Mm-hmm. A huge fire going up to the sky. I think I see a dragon. I see castles. Tell me about the world of True Flame and what these books are like.
Okay, so I've been pitching them as How to Train Your Dragon meets The Legend of Korra.
Okay.
Because we have friendships with dragons. This book, so each book in the series, the first 3, has a different main character, and it's a different generation of women in the same family, and they all have the same power. They're basically firebenders. And so they become friends with the dragons, and they're helping them and working with them and protecting them sometimes. And so the first book was a woman named Dionelle. The second book is her daughter Nisha. And Nisha is a little bit prickly. She doesn't want to be her mom. She doesn't want to take her mom's path, though she does end up on it eventually. And she's all about her magic, and she just really wants to learn more. She's just very hungry to learn and to have her power recognized, because she's a little bit arrogant. She knows she's powerful. And yeah, there are some scenes with her doing some very big fire magic, like on the cover of the book.
So the recognition she wants is that other people recognize she's as good and powerful, good at the magic and as powerful at the magic as she thinks she is.
Yes. Her close family knows. Yes, you're powerful, dear. We know. We get it. But she kind of wants, her name in the sky.
Sure.
Yeah.
And is it for her, is this a coming of age book, or is she already an adult?
She's I guess it would be sort of like a new adult genre, because she's 18. She's just turning 18, but she is, she's done school and she's going to have a baby soon, and she's into, that early phase of adult life and trying to figure herself out. And she is a queer woman, and she lives in a not exactly queer-friendly society, and she's just really pushing hard against that. So there's a lot of conflict in that too. Her parents accept her, especially her mom, but less so wider society, and so she's got a lot of that she's up against as well. But she's just a lot about, look at me, I'm very powerful, it shouldn't matter what else I'm doing.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice. And the True Flame is available today.
It is.
Where can people in the US and Canada order it?
Oh, pretty much anywhere. I
Great.
have released it wide, so it's available pretty much everywhere they sell books online. So some of the major ones, Barnes & Noble, Indigo for people in Canada, Kobo, Amazon, of course. I think it's on Smashwords, just about everywhere.
All right. How did you celebrate the launch? Or how have you been celebrating the launch?
Working on the next book.
Fair.
I made a cake. I had some cake. There was cake involved. Yes.
Great.
It was. I thought about having a launch party, but that's expensive, and I was busy, and the weather was terrible, and I had a headache, and just been very busy, and I thought that's going to stress me out more. So I did quiet at home celebration.
Yeah, that is part of being self-published, is you lose ostensibly the publicist who does the headachy parts of things.
Yeah.
The party planning side of things.
Yes.
Yeah.
I did have, way back in the day, a launch party for the first book, Dragon Whisperer, when it came out, and that was a lot of fun. But the place that I did it wasn't a good venue anymore. They've grown and they don't have as much space as they used to for that sort of thing.
Yeah.
So, and then I wasn't sure where else. Honestly, I don't leave my house because, pandemic, and we're all vulnerable here. So we do things outdoors, and that time of year in Canada, not a great time to do something outdoors.
Yeah.
So I haven't been to cafes in over 3 years now, so I don't even know what's available locally.
Yeah, that's a big challenge. It's a big challenge to find safe spaces, safe outdoor spaces, places where they are still at least occasionally requiring masking. We have some of our author event spaces will, I think if let's see, Women and Children First is still they still keep a box of masks at their door and require it of everybody, which is nice.
Oh, good.
It's a feminist bookstore in Chicago. But it's a real mixed bag. Bag.
Yep. Yep. And it's like the area I'm in is not hostile against people who still wear masks. It's just I wasn't sure what the vibes were in cafes anymore. I really haven't been in one for 3 years, and so I wasn't. The bookstores are all some of them are gone, and one of them is very tiny and doesn't have enough space to do that kind of event. So I was just like, where? The logistics just started to. I was just like, this is too much headache. I'm gonna make a cake. It's gonna be a great cake. I'm gonna eat the whole thing. And
well, then, what was the cake?
You know what? It was just box cake.
That's fine. What flavor box cake?
Oh, I love a good box cake. It was just the vanilla rainbow sprinkle box cake.
Nice. Yeah.
Betty Crocker, I think. Oh yeah, I love it. So good.
Nice. Did you do any frosting?
No, I don't love icing a whole lot.
Okay.
So I just made the cake and
perfect.
It's good cake. It's so moist. You don't really need icing on it.
Yeah. That was something I remember early in the pandemic. That was something that sold out fast in Chicago, were box cakes. Like you couldn't get them because everybody all of a sudden was cooking everything at home.
Right.
And you couldn't, it was one of the things that disappeared off the shelf early.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So it was wild.
Yeah, here too. The baking aisle was just it was tumbleweeds on the shelves. All the flour was gone. There was no flour. I was very fortunate that I just happened to have picked up some flour early in March anyway. And like the next week I went into the grocery store and it was gone. The toilet paper aisle and the baking aisle just like empty. Yeah.
Yeah. I went through a very ridiculous, I kept losing my toilet paper.
Oh no.
I was fine I had like just gone to Costco or something. I was fine. I had like 36 rolls. I live alone. I was set. So I'm going to say like August of 2020, first time I finally need toilet paper. I buy toilet paper. I'm in a rental car. I have a rental car for 2 weeks. I never get it out of the trunk of the rental car. Turn the car back in. Do not have toilet paper.
Oh no.
Then I get a car. I go to Target. I buy toilet paper and I don't put it in my cart. Like I check out, I pay for it, I put all the bags in my cart, and I leave the toilet paper behind.
Oh no.
And I get home again and I'm like, how have I done this twice where I have lost 2 12-packs minimum of toilet paper? I felt so insane because I kept going to the car and I'd open it and I'm like, I know I bought toilet paper. I know it was in the cart. Like it was the whole point of going to Target.
Oh no.
So I was never without toilet paper, but I was like the toilet paper fairy for other people.
Oh, gotcha.
Hopefully other people, the people at the car rental place benefited. Maybe they split it up among themselves. So.
Yeah.
And then shockingly, later in the pandemic, I got diagnosed with ADHD. So
Yeah, the pandemic was a good time for that. My spouse and daughter both got it. They're both inattentive, and I wouldn't have picked it up. It's just a lot of my friends who are assigned female at birth were, they were coming out and saying, oh, ADHD, this is what I was like as a child. And I'm like ticking off all these boxes of what my daughter was like at the time and what she's always been like as a child. And I was like, oh, and went on the websites and started looking, and I'm like, oh, started reading the books, and it's got, the genetic component to it. I'm like, well, it's not me, because none of this fits me. And then so we started talking to my husband, and we went, oh, it's you. Oh, okay. So they both he got his diagnosis because she got hers first, and then we were like, well, genetics. And so he got tested, and so they both, he was 45 at the time.
Yep.
Yeah.
Same. I think it's that for me, because it was also inattentive, it was that once I stopped commuting and stopped literally having the motion of my life that kind of kept it all working, the daily adrenaline of like commuting and social life and going out. And once that all came to a screeching halt, then I didn't have adrenaline anymore. And then it just sort of all started to unravel.
Yep. Your routine. Well, everybody's routines got disrupted, and yeah.
It's a wild ride.
Yeah, we noticed my daughter was, she had one of those balls with a handle on it that you bounce on. Mm-hmm. And my office, there's like a door behind me and a door next to me in a hallway, and there you could do a loop. And she was bouncing in a loop for hours. And I was like, what is this? And then we started looking into the ADHD, and I was like, that's what this is. Yep. Yeah.
Well, there are no silver linings to a global pandemic with so much death and disability.
No.
But there were some moments, the opportunities for some of that self-learning was important. And I don't know how to, I've still not figured out a non-gross way to say that.
Yeah, it's tough.
Right.
Yeah.
I would rather be undiagnosed than have everybody alive, just for the record.
Yes. Yeah. No, it's very weird, because it's like, personally I'm okay as long as I pretend the rest of the world doesn't exist. But like, how do you do that? It's that, it's a mess.
Yeah, it is. All right, Vanessa, your book, True Flame, available everywhere books are sold. It will be linked in the show notes. It's available today. And people, this is the time to get into this series, because Vanessa, you've heard her here. Books 3 and 4 are coming. She's not going to George R.R. Martin you and leave you hanging with books promised that she doesn't write. 3 and 4 are written.
They are written. They're coming out. I expect the overall series arc will come to a close in book 5. I am a planner, so I already know how that book is going to go. I just need some time to write it. Yeah, its series will be complete very soon. But yeah, 3 and 4 are already done. One comes out in August, one comes out in November.
Fantastic. Mark your calendars. Get those first 2 books under your belts, friends.
Do it.
So, Vanessa,
yes.
Your book is what brings us together, but we're also here to talk about your favorite things. And you sent me an amazing list. Is there anything from the list you want to kick off with, or can I ask you about something?
You can ask.
So you noted that your favorite insect is the monarch butterfly, which you raise in the summer.
I do.
I would like to know more about monarch butterflies, please.
They're really cool.
Yeah.
So sadly, I have not seen any yet this year. I've been checking the map obsessively. Mm-hmm. There's a map called Journey North where people report in, I saw one. And that map is like way up past north of where I am. And there's someone in the next town over who's seen some. And I'm like, but I haven't. Where are they? Any day now I'm going to find one. But not yet. And I'm kind of sad about it.
Because I almost said commuting.
I love that.
What is the word when they commute from Mexico to Canada?
Mexico. They migrate. That was fabulous.
Because they migrate from Mexico all the way up to Canada.
They do, yes. They get quite a bit north of here even. And I was kind of surprised because, it's cold, but I guess they're pretty much all the way up to Ottawa now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, I have so many questions.
Sure.
Let me try and organize them a little bit. What does it mean to do the conservation efforts? What do you do for monarch butterflies?
So it started with not pulling up the milkweed that they rely on, because monarch butterflies, the caterpillars only eat milkweed. They will eat nothing else. So I didn't realize what it was because, like I said, I grew up north and they don't go up there. There's no milkweed up there. And I just, I moved into this house and I was like, oh, that smells pretty. I'm not going to pull it up because milkweed, when it flowers, smells quite lovely. So, it's a big unwieldy plant, but it smells really nice. So I was like, I'm going to leave that. And then there's some on our walkway and I was walking my daughter to school and she was like, Mama, what is that? And it was a 5th instar caterpillar. And instar refers to how often they molt. They molt 5 times before they make their chrysalis and become a butterfly. And the 5th instar ones are huge. They are big, chonky caterpillars. If there's one on a plant near you, you're going to see it. They're fairly well camouflaged with their stripes. But yeah, they're big. They're hard to miss. And so we were looking at it. I was like, I have no idea what that is. So I Googled caterpillars in Ontario and finally matched with a monarch and started reading more about them. And I was like, oh, well, these are cool. I'll just keep leaving the milkweed. And the next spring, I was outside when one came by and started laying eggs on my plants, and I was like, oh, magic!
Cool.
And that was where it really started. And then we were keeping track of the eggs because I found the website where you can report in to, I've seen them, I've seen eggs, I've seen caterpillars. So I was doing that, and then the eggs started disappearing, but there were no caterpillars. And then I caught ants eating some of the eggs, some of the baby caterpillars. I was like, oh no, there's got to be something I can do. Back to Google, and I found the Monarch Watch website, which explains quite a bit about, their life cycle and predation and that sort of thing. And there was a community of people who do raise them. And I was like, I'll give that a try. And so
Amazing.
I take the entire leaf off the plant and put it in a little Tupperware container with damp paper towel on the bottom. The leaves are pretty hardy. They will stay fresh for a few days, and then the caterpillar hatches. You give them fresh leaves, and I just keep them in these containers. And I've got a great big mesh tent that I will put actual plants in vases full of water, and just keep the caterpillars in there because they are toxic to invertebrate, but any other kind of bug, they're a tasty snack. Even up when they're huge, wasps will eat them. I found wasps eating them once. And I was like...
They're like, it's a lovely buffet for us.
They're so slow. They're big and slow and, not...
Right.
Their defense mechanism is being toxic, but that's only to mammals. So, and birds. Yeah. I've heard of birds, will accidentally eat one and throw it up. But any other insect, spiders eat them, and I'm just like, no! So...
No.
So I keep them outside because if they're not kept outside, they won't migrate. But you keep them outside and just away from other predators however you can. And then my little bug tent started filling up with all these little... They hang upside down and make their little chrysalis, and it's green for a couple of weeks. And then it starts to change color, and that's really exciting.
Cool.
Because first it gets darker, and then you can see the butterfly. The chrysalis goes from green to clear. I guess what's inside goes from green to an actual thing because it's gross. They liquefy, right? And then when they're not liquefied anymore, you can see the butterfly through this clear thing. It's really neat. And then they come out, and then their wings are all crinkly, and they hang there, and their wings on crinkle, I guess, and just like they just hang there until their wings dry and they just come nice and flat and then they fly off. They're really derpy about flying away. They're not great at it at first. I rescue them off the road and off my driveway and put them back up in trees and stuff. And now I've started tagging them. Last year was my first year tagging them. So I bought
little tiny bracelets.
They're these little teeny tiny stickers. They're such a pain to work with. But you just put these little stickers you stick on their wing. And then there's volunteers in Mexico. Once they have done that cycle of their life, and they pick up the ones off the ground that have died, and I guess they maybe catch some of the live ones. And there are some volunteers all along the route who will catch and see if there's any tags. And if there's tags, they note, so that they can keep an eye on, where they're going, where they're coming from, how many are making it back, and from where. And so I tagged 25 last year.
Cool.
And that was really neat. None of my butterflies made it to Mexico, or if they did, nobody found their tags.
Okay.
But it was still neat to do it, and I've already ordered my tags. I'll do it again this year.
Nice. So after they become monarch butterflies in your tent, then when they start flying, do they immediately start migrating south? Like as soon as they're butterflies, do they start their southward journey, or?
Not right away. They don't start migrating until where I am. They don't start migrating until about mid-August, late August. So the first generation of them just fly around and hang out sometimes, because they'll breed here and do another. We get 2 or 3 generations in my. Oh. So they come up here and they breed and migrate and breed and migrate. So they have some cycles of breeding and migration as they come north. Okay. And then about mid-August, they stop breeding and they start flying south. They fatten themselves up a little in late July, early August, and then they start flying south mid-August here. I think it's later in other places, earlier, farther north. But they start. I have noticed that if I happen to be around when they start flying away, like my last few of the year, I do know they head south right away. Which is neat. I'm like, go little butterfly, go. But
and they're, as adult butterflies, also only eating milkweed?
No,
the caterpillars only eat milkweed, but the adults do.
Yes.
They do pollen, right, from flowers?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. They're not picky about flowers. They'll whatever pollinators generally like, they will go for. And so during the pandemic, I put in a pollinator garden because we had this ugly lawn that was mostly dirt and weeds, and I was like, I'm tired of looking at this, and I'd been thinking of putting in a flower garden anyway. And then another author I follow on social media, Cameron Hurley, had put in a pond for the start of quarantine, and I was like, I could just do it myself, couldn't I? Because I was thinking of hiring someone, and that's so much money, so that was what was holding me back. And then I was like, I could do that. So I did. I dug up my lawn and I put in perennials. And I have now had my flower gardens designated a Monarch Waystation by Monarch Watch. So I got a little plaque, and I'm listed on their little website, and because I have a certain number of certain kinds of plants that the butterflies like.
Wow. You're officially a Monarch Waystation.
Yeah.
So by being marked as one, do other Monarch aficionados have permission to drop by? Is there, in the human community of Monarch Watchers, do you ever get drop-ins, or is that not what people do?
They maybe have. They haven't knocked on my door.
Yeah.
I do see a lot of people just walking down the street and stopping and staring at my yard.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if it's because of the I've got the little plaque they sent me is on my little free library out in front of my house.
Nice.
So people see that, and I've got pamphlets with information that I put in my little free library, and those disappear. So I assume my neighborhood knows. My daughter's school is around the corner from our house, and they have a way station at their school as well. They recently put in.
Aww.
So it is in the community that people are, I think they put theirs in, or theirs got designated before mine, but like it's not a competition.
Yeah.
Yes. But yeah,
But they found out about it from you.
So yeah, there's, I guess people could. There aren't a lot of people in my area that do it. I think it's more sort of like in the Midwest, which is really firmly in their migration path. There's a lot more that way. And then there's, I think in Canada, probably around Point Pelee, there's a lot more interest because that's also on their migration route, and you get them, like the sky will fill with them. I haven't been there to see it yet. I'm hoping one of these years I can get down in the autumn, because apparently it's really something to see. There's a few days. It's a very narrow window I've never been able to catch.
Yeah.
Where you can watch them. They gather on Point Pelee and then they fly off every morning. And so in the evening, like the trees are just heavy with them apparently.
Wow.
So that would be cool to see. But yeah, the more there's a bigger community for it. I think the organization is based in Kentucky. So there's a heavier concentration of people doing it in that area. But yeah, people have definitely stopped to check it out.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Because I'm from Indiana. I live in Chicago now. Like, definitely monarch. I've grown up around monarch butterflies my whole life.
Yeah.
And the guys in my building that garden, I know that we leave milkweed. I think that we've got some like in our, it just like grows, it just grows.
Oh yeah. If you don't stop it, it grows.
Yeah.
It takes over.
But to my knowledge, nobody in my building is going the extra effort with the caterpillars. So, but I'm sure if I looked at the map, it's Monarch Watch?
Yeah, it's called Monarch Watch.
Okay.
And I can't remember. There, you can navigate through their website, and there is a spot where they list all of their official way stations. There's a lot more people who are doing it more unofficially, but mine's an official way station.
Yeah. Well, I wonder because the park across the street from me has some reclaimed prairie in the middle of the park. That is the prairie that Illinois was before it was colonized.
Right.
And it's fascinating because you walk into the prairie and the temperature always drops like 10 degrees from the green grass. So I'm going to check it out and see if the park across the street from me has an official way station or not. I don't know if it has enough flowers in it.
Yeah, there's a minimum number of, they want you to have a certain number of perennials and a certain number of not just flowering things, but like shrubs and structures to protect, like in bad weather, to protect the bugs. So I think it's like they want you to have a few shrubs or like big leafy plants with good structure to them, where the butterflies and the caterpillars can shelter if they need to. Wow. Yeah, it was very in depth, and I was looking at it, I was like, oh, this is going to be so much work, and then I'm going through the criteria, and I was like, I've already done all the work. I already have, just because the way I planned my garden, I wanted to have perennials blooming from the time the snow melts until, frost in the autumn, and I do. And so because I had already done all of that just for my own mental health benefit, I want flowers all the time.
Right.
That also benefits pollinators, including the monarch butterflies. So I was like, I already did it. And I just had to check some boxes, and I think there was a small fee involved, and yay.
That's so cool.
Yeah, it was really cool. I love it. And every day I'm like poking around in my garden and like checking the milkweed to see if there's any caterpillars there yet or not. And so far nothing.
Do you get what are other pollinators that visit you because of your way station? Have you noticed, or?
This year it's just lots of mosquitoes, which is really disappointing.
What a bummer.
There's so many mosquitoes right now. But I've been getting more hummingbirds because of all of the perennials, and just some of the types of perennials that I have, and just more butterflies in general of all different varieties. Those little tiny white ones, the cabbage butterflies or something. Anyway, those little tiny white ones. I had tons of those. I've seen some more swallowtails around. I have actually started planting more plants for swallowtails now, because they're lovely.
Yeah.
There is one. There's one swallowtail that's been hanging out around my yard the last 3 or 4 days. So, yeah, that's
what
really
does
neat.
swallowtails like that's different than monarch butterflies?
They like fennel and parsley and dill and I think a couple of other herbs that they that's what they like to
They're
munch
salad
on.
boys.
Yeah, they are. Yeah.
Huh.
So if there's something in your herb garden eating it all, it might be a swallowtail caterpillar.
Huh. I'll keep my eyes open.
Yeah,
because we definitely.
I have the herb section of my garden, but then I also out in my pollinator garden just planted some extra parsley and dill and some fennel. So we'll see what happens.
Nice.
Something is eating the parsley. So
good.
Something other than me is eating the parsley.
The pollinator parsley?
Yes.
Like you're specifically like animals can have this one?
Yes. Yep. Something's eating the one that I have designated for not me.
Awesome. Oh, that's really cool. Is there anything else about monarchs that I didn't ask about that you want to make sure to mention?
They're really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, they're just a really fascinating species. They're so pretty. They're so big. I didn't see them before I moved down here. Apparently they are up north where I grew up, but I just never saw any.
Yeah.
We also didn't have a lot of flowers in our yard, so that might have had something to do with it. But yeah, I just never really saw any till I moved down here. But they are fairly big. I think they're one of the longest migrating, like their migration route is one of the longest for out of the migrating butterfly species. I think they have one of the longest, if not the longest. I didn't look it up, and I really should, and I keep meaning to, and then I just forget.
It's okay.
But yeah, their migration route is it's extensive. If you really look at it on the map, to go from Ottawa to, Mexico, that's a long trip.
Yeah. I'm on I have Monarch Watch pulled up now. I was going to see if they have the migration right down to central Mexico.
Yeah. Their arrival back coincides with the Day of the Dead celebrations.
Oh.
They start arriving back right around Day of the Dead. And my Spanish pronunciation is horrible, so I'm not going to try and butcher what it's actually called in Spanish, but the Day of the Dead ceremonies, and I have seen some of the costumes. A lot of people will dress up as monarchs, have some very lovely wings and things. That's about when they start returning to Mexico.
That is cool.
Yeah. And it's about the same time every year. They pretty reliably leave Mexico around the same time in the spring, and they arrive back. Like, you can set your watch to it, apparently, which is really interesting.
Yeah. Because now you said they'll do a few breeding cycles when they get north.
Yes.
So are there monarch butterflies that never get to migrate?
There are, yes.
They live their whole life in Ontario.
They will, yeah. Monarch butterflies live either 30 days or 8 to 9 months. So the ones that migrate survive 8 to 9 months, and the ones that don't migrate, about 30 days.
Can you tell by looking at them which is a migrating one and which is a summer love?
Early in the season, the migrating ones, when they first arrive, look really battered. Their colors aren't as vibrant. Their wings are off in tatters. I saw one once come in. And it was a female laying eggs on my. She wouldn't have migrated from very far, because usually the first generation gets to about Texas or so.
Okay.
And then they breed. But this one had probably come from somewhere in the U.S. For breeding and laying eggs, and yeah, she was looking rough.
Huh.
Yeah, yeah, because when they first emerge from their chrysalis, their wings are very vibrant. They're very
Mm-hmm.
orange, and then once they get older, they start to really fade.
Yeah.
It's not all of the colors are very faded. So
Huh.
yeah, yeah, that was neat to see this really old one, because usually I don't think this is the only one I've seen that was very clearly older.
That is, well, I'm going to link to everything on monarchwatch.org, and
Yeah,
people can spend some quality time on here, see if you're in the path. Can you I think there's definitely a time in my childhood when our side yard could have been designated a what is it called?
a way
Your a
station.
way station.
Yeah.
Because my parents have a house on a double lot, and there was a point in like junior high or elementary school where my dad had just gotten tired of mowing. So he rented a tiller for the weekend and tilled up the side yard and left like one path, and then bought a can of mixed wildflower seeds from a catalog, and we just planted wildflowers, and our side yard was just wildflowers for probably 10 years.
That's amazing.
It was
I
great.
love that.
It was
I love
really
it.
like black-eyed Susans, thistle,
Mm-hmm.
coneflowers,
Mm-hmm.
just random wildflowers for years.
Yes, I've got a lot of those. I've got
Yeah.
black-eyed Susans, and I've got coneflowers, and I've got some globe thistles in my
Nice.
garden. Yeah, yeah. I've got a couple butterfly bushes, some lilacs,
Mm,
bee balm. They love bee balm.
what's that?
It is. You've probably seen it, but it's just this big weird flower on a stalk.
Yes.
Yeah.
We had those. Absolutely. I didn't know what they were called. Wild bergamot.
Ah, okay.
Bee balm. They're so pretty.
They are pretty.
Each one looks like a little bouquet on its own almost.
Yeah, they do. They're really nice.
Nice.
And the hummingbirds love them too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, and they come in lavender and pink and a few different colors.
Yep. Yep.
Nice. How fun.
Yeah, yeah. So I've been dabbling in gardening for a really long time.
Mm-hmm.
And the pandemic was the thing that really got me into it properly.
Yeah.
And yeah, now I'm the person all my friends come to with plant questions. And I'm like, I'm still just learning too, but I'll see if I can help you. But yeah, because the pandemic hit, I couldn't write anymore. I was just non-functioning. Especially the first couple of months, I was just existing.
Yeah.
And it was 2 years before I could write again.
Yeah.
So I've only just started getting back into writing after the pandemic. But gardening was a really magnificent creative outlet for me.
Mm-hmm.
But now it consumes a lot of time in the spring.
Yeah. So you have herbs, and do you have like a vegetable garden too?
Yes, yeah. So I have some really big flower gardens. Mostly my entire front yard is a flower garden. We're on a really big lot. The front yard isn't huge, but it's not like postage size. So all over the front and the sides of the house are flower gardens, and then the back,
Beautiful.
I've just got one little strip where nothing was growing except buckthorn, which is invasive and terrible. And we finally got all the buckthorn out, but like the grass wasn't really coming back. So I thought, yeah, let's plant some flowers. That took more research because our backyard is fenced in. It's for the dogs. And so I had to find things that if the dogs ate it, it would be okay, because we had some hostas, and my golden retriever ate the hostas, and she was a little sick. It's just a like gastro.
Yeah.
But some of them are neurotoxins. So
oh no. Yeah.
yeah, we had to really be careful with what's in the backyard. Our neighbors had some nightshade growing along the fence, and one of my dogs ate it, and she was so sick. So we had to make sure that we were pulling it, like if it came through the fence, we were yanking it out. And they finally, I was like, my dogs are eating your nightshade. And they're like, oh, we didn't know we had nightshade, and they got rid of it. But
oh, good.
Because they have dogs too, so.
Right.
And they're grandparents now, so, you don't want that sort of thing
right
around. Because, kids, berries!
Yep.
Yes.
I have. My sister and I classically did that once to some mushrooms.
Oh, no.
Because in Indiana, you hunt for morels. It's like a wild mushroom that you can go hunting for.
Oh, they grow in my yard, yes.
Yeah. And so we had grown up eating morels, and we were like 6 years old, and we found some mushrooms growing on a tree in the tree row, and we had been eating cinnamon bears. It's a very specific memory. Eating cinnamon bears, found these mushrooms, ate the mushrooms. My brother's best friend Jerry came along and finds us like sitting at a tree eating mushrooms. Told our mom, and our mom like threw us in the back of the Pinto, drove to Kmart, got some syrup of Ipecac, to make us vomit, and then because we had the cinnamon bears, she knew it had everything had gotten out.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And then didn't do mushrooms for a very long time.
Uh-huh. Yeah. Oh, wow. Your poor mom must have been.
Yeah.
Do you know what kind of mushrooms you ate?
No. White ones.
White ones?
White mushrooms that would grow in the city on something dogs had peed on. Like, who knows? Right? Like, not pristine forest mushrooms or morels that had been grown on, compost that you knew where it was from. Just like random tree mushrooms.
Wow. Oh, no.
It's possible they weren't poisonous, but I imagine my mom called the poison control hotline or just wasn't taking the chance.
Yeah.
But,
no.
Yeah.
No, don't take the chance there.
Mm-mm.
No. I didn't know what morels were at first, and then they sprang up in our yard after we put our deck in, and I was like, what are these?
A gift is what they are.
Yes. Yeah. They stopped coming up. We've had a lot of dry springs, and I haven't seen them in a while, but yeah, they were tasty.
Yeah.
Once I Googled them, and I was like, okay, not poison.
Not poison. Delicious.
Delicious. Yeah. Yeah, they were good.
They're so good.
Yes. But yes, I do have a vegetable garden back there as well.
Nice.
Fenced in because I have golden retrievers and they are the trash compactors of the dog world. They'll eat anything.
Uh-huh.
Mm-hmm. Before we fenced it in, back in the day, my one golden retriever, I was, out there and I caught him just like his mouth around a pepper. And I was like, what are you doing? And he just backs out and it's just slobbery pepper left on the plant. I was like,
he's like,
jerk.
I'm gardening.
Yeah. And
we garden?
They dug up the carrots because they love carrots.
Really?
So they figured out where the carrots were and dug them up. So we have our another fence around our vegetable garden to keep them out.
So we have a little bit of time left, and I also wanted to ask you about, because I feel like it sort of marries nicely with the world of monarch butterflies.
Sure.
But you said your favorite tree is the giant sequoia.
Yes. Yeah.
Have you seen a giant sequoia in person?
I have. That's why they're my favorite.
Yeah. Time travel, take us to that time when you first got to see a giant sequoia in person. Okay,
so I didn't even know they existed. Like, you hear about redwoods and stuff. It's just sort of part of culture. Cartoons, the giant redwoods, whatever. Those are also really cool. I finally got to see those. But I saw sequoias first because National Geographic had done a thing on the sequoias. And they had covered two of the bigger ones in Sequoia National Park. Mm-hmm. And the way in a magazine there's like you open it up and you unfold the centerfold, and it was one of the sequoias, and I unfolded it, and there's this itty bitty little tiny red blob that was a human in the tree, and I was like, how is this real? This isn't real. This is fake.
Yeah,
they're trolling me. National Geographic, how dare you? But so anyway, I looked into it a little bit more and started researching it and finding out where they were. And I was like, oh, it's a park in California. I've never been to California. So I unfolded the thing again. I brought it to my husband, showed him the tree, and I was like, this is real. I want to go see it. And he was like, sure.
Great.
So we did one year. We planned our whole trip around me going to see. I've always loved trees. I grew up in a forest. My dad is a logger. There was a lot of tension growing up because I'm a tree hugger. He's cutting them down. But I grew up surrounded by trees. I love forests. I love trees. And I was like, these are the biggest trees on earth. I want to go see them. So we did. And we took a trip and we saw a few parks in California. In Sequoia National Park was one of them. And it was amazing. I just sat on the bench under the tree and I was like, I can see it with my eyes, but how is it real? Does not compute, because the one, like the biggest one is called General Sherman. They name some of them. So General Sherman, the biggest tree by volume in the world. I mean, it's like just the footprint of the tree is astounding. It's like the size of a room. Like my office here would fit inside a sequoia.
Yeah.
And then it's so tall. So I stood under them and like did that look up and I'm like, I can't even see it. It's probably about as tall as the apartment building my mom lives in. It's like a 23-story apartment building.
Wow.
And that's about how tall a sequoia is, and the redwoods. So, yes, in 2014, we went up to California and went up into the mountains, and it was just so magical. It's my favorite place. I was there last year. We went in October in the middle of the worst of that drought Yeah. It ended like 2 years later, I think. But yeah, we drove through and there were like, the orchards that were being plowed under because they couldn't say it's just, it was bad. And we could see the reservoir levels when we were driving past those and how low they were. And I was like, wow.
Yeah.
That was what put the California drought on my radar too. But yeah, the trees were just phenomenal. So I went back in 2018 with my daughter. We went to Worldcon because it was in California, and I was like, a good excuse to go to California and see the trees again. So my daughter and I spent a week in the mountains, just the two of us. She was 7 at the time. And we spent a week in the mountains, mostly in Sequoia, and it was so great just hanging out. And it actually was right around the Perseid meteor shower, so we have this great memory of the two of us just lying in this parking lot they had set aside where we were staying. Like the park was like, yeah, meteor shower, if you want to go see it, here it is. And there was this candlelit trail from one of the lodges out to this parking lot they weren't using anymore, and it was just full of people just lying on the ground in the parking lot just stargazing, and we saw so many meteors that way. And then I got some good pictures. We went out to General Sherman later that night, and I had my husband's really good DSLR camera with us, and I just like propped it up on a fence post under the tree, and I have a really beautiful picture of the Milky Way, and it's bordered by silhouettes of the trees, of the giant trees.
Wow.
Yeah. Oh, it was such a good trip. And then I went again last year by myself this time.
Yeah.
And I spent 2 weeks in California. I rented a camper van and I flew into LA and I drove up Highway 1 all the way to Redwood National State Park and was there for a bit. And that was amazing too. I love those trees so much.
Huh.
It's just, they're just magic. They're just magical. Yeah. And then, I drove back down and spent a few days in Sequoia again. And it was just amazing. And I was like, if it wasn't for fire season, I would find a way to live here. Yeah. So, but yeah, fire season, it's scary.
It's so scary.
Yeah. In September, before I was supposed to go last year, there had been a fire in Sequoia. And because I had been in 2018 and then again in 2022, the 2021 fire was still very fresh, but because I'd been there recently, I knew what it had looked like before the fire had gone through. And we actually didn't get to go to Yosemite in 2018 because it was on fire at the time.
Oof. Yeah.
And which is why I went early in the spring. last year because I was like, I'm going to go between snow melt and fire season and, really be able to see it. But there was so much I couldn't see because the fire had happened, and it was just so brutal. It was so heartbreaking to look at the pictures that I had taken in 2018 versus the ones from 2022 and just the devastation. I mean, where I grew up was forest fire country in Northern Ontario, and I think they're on fire right now even. And I don't want to have to do that again with a fire on the horizon. And do we go? Can we go?
Right.
I have had family been in places where they ended up getting airlifted out because the one highway in was on fire, and the fire was like in Fort McMurray. I had two cousins who were living and working there, and one of my cousins got flown out because he had stayed too long. He didn't end up losing his house, but he had stayed too long, and the city was on fire, and the fire was closing in, and they had all gone north, and they ran out a highway, but the fire was still coming. So I think it was WestJet. One of the airlines was flying people out. They were like, just put people on planes and we'll get them out. But my cousin had been and he had gone down the highway probably minutes before they closed it, and his car filled with smoke. He got home to Northern Ontario and opened his doors, and they could smell the fire smoke days later on all of his stuff in the car, because we were like, you're like, I'm just thinking like the smoke inhalation. He was so lucky. He was so lucky.
Yeah.
And I don't really want to live with that again, but those trees are beautiful.
Yeah. Hopefully this winter there was so much snowfall. I mean, record-breaking snowfall in California.
Wild. I follow the parks online now, and I was seeing the pictures in the winter of all the snow, and I was like, I've been there. I would be under like 12 feet of snow right now if I was there.
Yeah, the pictures of people like trying to shovel out, and then they're like, well, now we're just going out of the bedroom window on the second floor. Right. And they're and trying to get some of the snow off their roof so the roofs don't collapse. And it was but hopefully enough of that was able to seep through to the groundwater and go into the reservoirs, and that those trees sucked it all up like a camelback. Something. Yeah.
They do.
Yeah.
Well, they need so much water. It's wild. But I was like, that sucks for everybody living there, but also it's good too, because that much snow means you have snowpack well into the season. Yeah. Like, even if it doesn't rain, there will be so much snow melt. I know there's some flooding problems too now, but the last time I checked, I think they were just starting to open things up in Sequoia. Like, the snow it might not even all be melted yet. Which is wild, because when I was there a year ago, the snow was gone and it was already super dry, and they were already on the verge of getting, like, there were still campfires happening, but like, I think the fire ban started shortly after I left.
Yeah. I need to look at a map real quick. I feel like I know where it is. Oh, I don't at all.
Three Rivers?
It's more...
Yeah, it's fairly south, actually. It's a good bit south of Yosemite.
Yeah. Okay. I sort of always imagined it must be are the redwoods in Northern California?
Yes, the redwoods are right along the coast. The redwoods grow in a band about 30 kilometers up the stretch of the coast.
Okay.
They come down quite far south too, but the really big ones are farther north.
Got it.
And that's where I was last year too. I did both, because I was like, trees are like Pokemon. I got to collect them all. So, I did the redwoods. Amazing. And those ones, so the coastal redwoods rely on fog as much as rain. They collect the fog settles on them, the condensation, and they that's what keeps them alive through the summer, is all the fog.
Wow.
Yeah, that was something I learned when I was there last year. Because I figured it was just, groundwater, like most trees, but no, and I don't know if they collect it through their bark and their needles, or if just the way they're built, it funnels it, like the condensation, down to the roots, but they rely on fog.
Huh.
Yeah. Super cool.
So
Trees
cool.
are so cool.
They're so cool.
They're so cool. And they're so big. And they're so tall. And it's just
Yeah.
mind-boggling to think how big they are. Because I have some trees around here that are, I'm like, that's a big tree. And it's, you know, a 6-foot diameter and maybe 60 feet tall. And it's like, that would be a branch on a sequoia.
Yeah.
So.
Which is the tree that, now we wouldn't do this today, I hope. The one that they cut an arch through the middle for people to drive through. Was that a sequoia or a redwood?
I think they've done it with sequoias and with redwoods.
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. I think there was one. I think there were a few. They've all fallen down now because putting the tunnel through them destabilizes them. So they've. I think the last of one of them fell not too long ago. There is one that's on its side that you can drive through, and I did that.
Okay.
But it's different than driving through it while it's still alive. But there are lots of, I mean, I've been to them. There are lots of sequoias that have fire scars that go all the way through. So they have like a cave in them from the fire burning through it.
Wow.
But because it didn't burn the whole thing, they're still alive. It's just incredible how they can survive forest fires. But their bark is 3 feet thick on the really big ones.
Wow.
Yeah, and so they've got 3 foot thick bark, and they're so tall that mostly the fire doesn't always get, like, it's just around the base of them usually. So they have fire scars on the bottom, and some of them go all the way through. But as long as there's a little bit of heartwood left, they won't die. They don't die. They're vulnerable, of course.
Sure.
But they're still alive. And so you can, on some of these trails, like the Congress Trail in Sequoia, you can sometimes see, and you can go into them. I have some pictures of my daughter crawling around some of these tree caves that were caused by fire. And like she's just going under the roots, and there's some where you can literally go inside the tree.
That's so cool.
Yeah, they're just phenomenal trees, which is a part of why they're my favorite.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah, the forest, it's like being in a living cathedral when you go out into these kinds of forests.
Huh. I have never been. I've seen I gotta add that to I need to add this to my list.
They are phenomenal.
Yeah.
I recommend to everybody, if you want, even if you're not religious, if you want that, like, it's sort of like a spiritual feeling to be out in these forests.
Yeah.
It really is an experience. And I mean, any kind of forest is always such an incredible experience to be in, but these ones were just very special.
Yeah. Huh. Well, good on National Geographic for having such an arresting centerfold for you.
This all started because of National Geographic centerfold. Yep. Yeah, I was like, that can't be real. That just can't be real. And I showed people my pictures from the trip. So General Sherman is on the edge of a meadow, and you can go across. It's like the size of a football field, and that's how you get the entire tree in one picture. Mm-hmm. And I have some pictures that I've taken of it and there's tourists all along the bottom, and they're these teeny tiny little blobs the size of ants. And I'm like, those are people. This isn't Photoshop. Right. That's a real tree. Everything's to scale, and it's just. It's so hard. Like, it's one thing to, like, see it and another to, like, experience it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the General Sherman tree, 83 meters tall.
It's not the tallest tree, even.
Feet in diameter.
Yes. 36 feet in diameter. The diameter. I don't know. I remember how many feet the circumference is. But they're just wild. And I mean, the height of it is incredible to think about, and it's not even the tallest tree. I think currently the tallest tree is a redwood called Hyperion. Mm-hmm. Which I didn't get to see. You can't see it. There's no trail to it. But even some of the second tallest trees, they're amazing. Just how big these trees are. Yeah,
it seems like General Sherman, because it's accessible, they've made it
very accessible. Yes. I mean, it's accessible in sort of a general sense, but also disability accessible. They have a parking lot with only disability parking, and also it's where the buses drop you off. So if you take, I recommend that, taking the buses around. They have shuttles from point to point, and
Nice.
so you park in one spot, get on the shuttle, and the shuttle takes you around everywhere else. If anybody is planning on going, I recommend the shuttles highly. They're fantastic. But the shuttles drop you off at the the wheelchair accessible point, which is great. I mean, you know,
Nice.
for all kinds of things. Because if you walk it, you're going down a really steep hill. And I
Yeah.
did that walk once, and my knees are like, we're not doing this anymore.
No.
So, especially the climb back up. Oh, that is accessible as well. It's a paved trail, and most of the Congress Trail around there is a paved trail. Some of it gets very steep.
Yeah.
But yeah, to get to General Sherman, there's not a very steep grade. It's all wheelchair accessible, so you can go and just experience this gigantic tree. And it's not the only one there. There's tons of gigantic trees around it, but they have just where it is, because it's at the end of this meadow, it's just so visible, and it's really neat to be able to see it, because a lot of the bigger ones are surrounded by other really big trees, so you can't quite get a size of the scale of it because it's surrounded by giants.
Sure.
But this one is more visible, and you can really get, it's just incredible. And they left a branch that fell. It fell across the path, and they just left it there because they're like, this is a branch, but it's like 6 feet thick.
Oh my gosh. Amazing.
Yeah.
Well, Vanessa, this has been what a great way to start my Sunday. Your book, True Flame, the second in the Fireborn series, available everywhere. We'll link to it in the show notes. And people can... What was book 1 called?
Dragon Whisperer.
The Dragon Whisperer.
Yeah, the ebook is 99 cents for that one right now, too, so...
Nice.
Good deal.
So people can start reading your books now. Books 3 and 4 coming out later this year.
Yep.
And then the series will wrap with book 5.
Yes.
How exciting.
I'm excited.
Where can people follow you online?
I am trying all of the platforms these days, primarily Twitter and Instagram, though, you know, with Twitter's problems, I am trying to find the new place. I'm on Mastodon. I have a Spoutable account that I'm not really using. If anybody remembers Hive, I'm there too. I am on Blue Sky, but I don't have any invites, but I use just a V Ricci-Thode as my handle everywhere I go. And I do have a blog as well on my website that I'm trying to use a little bit more with social media being so unstable right now.
Great. Well, you can follow Finding Favorites on Twitter and Instagram. Please rate and review 5 stars, leave a review, and I will try and get in the habit of reading some of those kind reviews that have been left. So leave a review. Maybe I'll read it in a future episode. Vanessa, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you for having me and letting me geek out about things.
Thank you for listening to Finding Favorites with Leah Jones. Please make sure to subscribe and drop us a 5-star review on iTunes. Now, go out and enjoy your favorite things.